Ladies, boss man, looking good.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. Hey, can you get me a write-up for Q4?
Okay, sure.
You're the man. Just need it by the end of the month, okay?
End of the month. You got it.
And I'm gonna need you to write that down.
Sounds good.
Like, now.
Okay, I will.
All right. Thanks.
Hey Jim, what's up?
Okay, pen. Okay. Emails.
There he is, the boss.
Hey, Eric, did you get that?
No.
Ooh, boss is mad.
I'm sorry. I thought I had it up.
If it's up here, it won't be for long. You might think it will be, but it won't.
Hey man, hey, did you fill out that paperwork I asked you to do?
Nope.
Oh, dude, that was really important.
Sorry, I forgot.
No, dude, like, I'm gonna go to jail. I needed
Contrary
you
to what might seem obvious, this likely isn't necessarily a memory issue. In fact, you might have a great memory and remember a lot of little details about a lot of unimportant things. Like how Black Sabbath was founded by Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward, and Geezer Butler in 1968, the same year as Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple. So logically, remembering important things should be no problem, right?
Yes.
Nope. Mind shutting the door?
Yeah. This might be the last time you ever see me. If they do take me away, could you feed my cat?
Yeah, I'll remember.
Oh my God, he's gonna starve.
So how is not remembering things not a memory issue? Well, turns out when you have ADHD, it's likely more of a memory storage issue. In other words, once something makes it into your memory bank, you're usually able to hold on to it. But a lot of things have a way of just not quite making it there, regardless of how important they are. My theory is the same mechanism behind why people with ADHD are motivated by what's interesting to them as opposed to what's important also applies to our ability to store memories. Actually, to say memory issues aren't symptomatic of ADHD isn't quite right. More accurately, short-term and long-term memory problems aren't, but people with ADHD do struggle with their working memory. On the continuum of memory, your working memory comes before your short-term memory, which of course comes before your long-term memory, and it's what allows you to hold on to small amounts of information for a very short period of time as you complete cognitive tasks. An example would be trying to remember a phone number someone just told you long enough for you to dial it, or trying to solve a math problem in your head where you need to temporarily hold on to those numbers as you operate on them. Suffice to say, if your working memory isn't firing on all cylinders, that's certainly going to have an effect on your ability to transition information to your short-term and long-term memory. Furthermore, if an important to-do does happen to make its way into your memory bank, taking an action on it at the right time requires, well, a sense of time, which also happens to be something that people with ADHD struggle with. So, sounds like the outlook is pretty grim. Sorry, buddy. You're gonna be really hungry. Not really. The feeding the cat example doesn't really apply here because these things come with a built-in alarm. And this one likes to go off 2 hours before it's supposed to. And there's no snooze button, which actually makes him the perfect representation of the solution to our problem and the focus of today's video.
Cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading means setting things up in your external environment to reduce or replace the mental processing needed to complete tasks. I like to refer to this as externalizing, but you should not, because that word already has a meaning in psychology, which is to project negative behaviors outward, and it isn't a good thing. So, cognitive offloading it is. In its simplest form, cognitive offloading looks like writing something down so you don't forget it. Now, before you freak out, I know, just writing things down isn't a golden ticket, despite what your teachers may have told you. If it were that easy, this wouldn't really be a real problem, would it, Miss Ashford? But even though just writing things down won't work for you, doesn't mean the process of cognitive offloading won't. Actually, you kind of need it. In fact, you have close to a 0% chance of getting your shit together if you don't learn to offload. Thus far, everything we've talked about has sort of centered around your memory, but that's not the only useful application for cognitive offloading. Problem solving and planning are two other biggies. If you're trying to figure out why you're having a difficult time in some area of life and want to improve, if you try to solve that problem in your head, you're not going to go very far. If you want to strive for a goal, but you try to manage everything in your head, your chances of attaining it are going to be greatly reduced. problem solving and planning need to be offloaded. Okay, cool, I get it. Cognitive offloading is necessary. Now, how the hell do we do it? Well, first, I'll tell you what you shouldn't do. Oh no. I swear to you, that wasn't on purpose. That was annoying. Too much cleavage? One, if you tried some strategy in the past and it didn't work for you, don't keep trying it. For example, if you tried to manage all of your tasks and reminders with sticky notes in the past but still weren't able to stay on top of everything, your solution isn't to keep trying sticky notes hoping that this next time it'll stick. Two, don't look for apps that purport to do everything that you need. Those all-in-one, manage your whole ass life type apps generally suck in my opinion. Instead, look for ones that are flexible or that do specific things really well, and most importantly, fit into your ecosystem and in a way that isn't tedious. Which brings us to the first point in the solutions chapter of our programming. You need to create an ecosystem. Let's try this again. Nailed it. Reminders, plans, and ideas all need to exist within an environment that allows you to flow. With every new process or tool that you introduce, you need to be thinking about it in the context of your cognitive offloading umbrella. If something is disconnected and you feel like you're going out of your way to do it, sayonara. To keep everything connected, it's important to have a central point where everything can stem from. I like to call this your central hub, and it can be something as simple as a Google Sheet. I actually really like Google Sheets because it gives you the freedom to set everything up however you like, it's easy to use, and it is free. There are, of course, other tools you can use for this too. I made a video about Xtiles the other day, which is a good option. Notion will work too, but there's a bit more of a learning curve. Really, you just want anything that's going to give you the freedom to set it up any way you want without feeling restricted. And at the very least, I think it's important to have your central hub living somewhere online, because as much as I love using pen and paper, it's just really hard to set up any sort of integration without a computer in a way that isn't tedious. So with your tool picked out, you are now ready to build the foundation of your ecosystem. And in doing so, let's once again consider the three focuses of cognitive offloading. Remembering, planning, and ideas, which you could rephrase as when, how, what. And that should give you a good sense of why it's important to have cohesion here. They all fit together. We'll start with remembering. You may use a calendar. You probably don't use it very well. My guess is that you put some things on there, but you still lose track of crap. If you are someone who uses their calendar effectively, that's awesome. Keep using it. If it works, and ignore the next thing I'm about to say. I think calendars suck. I think they're a terrible tool for those of us who struggle to keep track of things over time, for a couple of reasons. One, calendars really don't give you a good sense of time.
How is that possible? It's literally a tool to help you keep track of things over the course of a year.
I'll tell you. This doesn't help us visualize where things exist in time in an intuitive way. If I have something due at the end of the month, I look at this and I think I have plenty of time, but I'm not actually doing the mental processing each time I look at this to figure out how many days I have left. Plus, once my calendar is all filled up, I'm going to be overwhelmed with information each time I look at it, and I'm certainly not going to focus on one specific thing at the end of the month. This also isn't showing me what I have going on next month at a glance, so if I have something due on, say, the 3rd, I'm not going to see it unless I flip the page or click to the next page, and I'm probably not going to be doing that every time I look at my calendar. The second problem is this tells me when something is due. Not well, but it does. But it's not set up in a way that allows me to effectively plan out when I'm going to work on whatever's due. Sure, I can put time blocks in before something's due, but that gets difficult to manage here quickly. So what's the alternative? Well, one of the first things I do for all of my clients is set up a linear calendar on Google Sheets that allows us to see all the things we need to do in a way that gives us all of the information we need at a glance and allows us to plan relative to everything that's going on. Here's what I mean. Dates, due dates, how much time am I going to spend on this, where am I going to plot out the time to do it. By the way, I put a link to a copy of this doc in the description below. It's all yours. Unfortunately, this can't completely take the place of your calendar because if there's an event that other people are attending, you'll still need to send them an invite through your online calendar. But in my opinion, that's the extent of what you should use that calendar for. And if there's crap that you need to get done before that event, you should still put it on your linear calendar so you can plot out when you're gonna do those things. Yes, I know this is creating double work, which is the enemy of all ADHDers, but once you get into a rhythm of it, it's very manageable. Now I know what you're thinking. This is all well and good, but it only works if I actually write down in the first place. So how do I do that? The most important thing here is to make the process of writing down as frictionless as possible. In other words, you need to eliminate as many steps as you possibly can. The reason why you're far more likely to write something down on a piece of paper on your desk next to an open pen than put something in your calendar is not because putting things in your calendar is hard. It just requires many more steps. The more steps something requires, especially if it isn't interesting, the less likely you are to do it. So my favorite tool to write things down is Google Keep. If I need to remember a task or an event or an idea, I just create a new note and write it down as fast as possible. I don't organize it or label it or anything. I just try to get crap out of my head as fast as possible. You can use it on your phone or computer so you can access it wherever. It syncs between the two. And you can access Google Keep directly from Google Sheets, which I'll get back to in a sec. Now, are there better notes apps out there? Yeah, I mean, probably. Evernote is great, I've used that in the past, but I always gravitate back to Google Keep, mainly because it's just so damn fast. And I think for capturing your thoughts, it's just about perfect. Okay, so say you found the app that you want to use to capture your thoughts. What now? Because if you've written them down but you never go back to them, well, they're just about useless, right? Remember how I said you can also access your Google Keep notes from Google Sheets? You can access Google Keep directly from Google Sheets. Well, to make any of those thoughts actionable, they now need to be organized. Now stay with me because I know how that sounds. It's great that you've captured your thoughts, but if you actually want to do anything with them, they need to be integrated into your life. So periodically, they need to be transferred into a place where we can make that happen. Remember our when, how, what? Remembering, planning, and ideas. For the things you need to remember, if they have a date and a time, you can put them directly onto your timeline. For things that don't yet have a date and a time, they can go into a bucket of things I need to remember, but they don't have a date or a time. And yes, at some point you will need to set a date and a time for those things to get them onto your timeline, even if it's just arbitrary. Next, we have planning. For the things that you need to start planning out, you can plop all those onto a new tab. Finally, for the ideas that you're not necessarily ready to start right now, but you don't want to lose them, you guessed it, new tab. As ideas become plans and plans actionable, they will always feed up to your timeline. Now, before we move on from ideas and planning, I want to take a moment to talk about a product that I really like and the sponsor of today's video. I know, whenever someone's getting paid to talk about a product, it's hard to assume they're not just being biased and insincere. But believe it or not, I do have a moral compass. I made a decision early on in my content creation journey to not sell my soul and only work with sponsors if I truly believe in their product. And for what it's worth, I've left a lot of money on the table in not working with brands that I really didn't believe in, or in some cases, I felt were just straight up evil. Now with that disclaimer out of the way, the product I want to talk about is called Audio Diary. It's a voice journaling app that uses AI to help you expand on what you've journaled about and feeds you information and prompts based on previous journaling sessions. I am a huge proponent of journaling, but I know that most ADHDers have a hard time doing it, as do I. And whenever I didn't feel like actually journaling, I would just fire up my phone camera or the camera on my computer and talk. And that was awesome because not only did it get me to actually do it, but there were times where in talking to the camera, I felt like my ideas just flowed better, or at the very least different. Turns out talking actually activates different parts of your brain as you're thinking through problems or ideas than writing does. And once I figured that out, I made it a practice of doing both journaling by hand and audio journaling. The reason I like this app so much is because it really does feel like an evolution of that. It allows me to both talk and write, plus it transcribes, summarizes, and follows up with me in a way that actually allows me to take action on all the juicy things that I journal about. Honestly, it's great. Plus, you can export your sessions, which means you can plot them directly into your central hub. Okay, sponsor segment complete. Let's get back to it. Now, I know this looks a little dry, but it shouldn't because you have full freedom to spruce it up and make it amazing. I'm not going to talk too much about how you should organize this and make it look nicer beyond what I already have because I don't want to stifle your creativity on this. The more you can customize this to fit your unique way of thinking, the more sticking power it's going to have. The last thing I will say though is always be thinking about ways to make your process more efficient. And in the age of AI, There are millions of ways to do that, especially in the realm of integration. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is actually doing the things that we just talked about, transferring your ideas over into your central hub. The key to making this happen is to fix that process to some recurring event that's always going to happen. Maybe that's the first time you fire up your computer in the morning. You open it up, look at your notes, transfer it, organize, move on. Maybe it's at the end of the day before we shut down, or both. I'd recommend getting in the habit of doing it once a day, then working up to a greater frequency if you have the need. Notice that I didn't say, pick a specific time of day that you want to do it. Because if you say, I want to do this every day at 8 a.m., well, guess what? There are going to be days where at 8 a.m. you're busy, and then everything's going to fall apart. Fix the process to an event that's always going to happen on the days where you want to carry out the process. I will always fire up my computer on Monday through Friday, which are the days that I want to carry out that process. I'm going to fix it to that. We're good. Finally, with any new process, there's a high likelihood that you're just going to stop doing it. Don't let that bum you out. Use it as an opportunity to reevaluate and make a change. Remember what I said earlier about not using sticky notes if they haven't worked for you in the past? Well, I lied, sort of. Don't keep using sticky notes in the same way that you've used them in the past, the same way that didn't work. Change something about that process and try again until you have something that sticks. If you stop using Google Sheets or transferring stuff over to your central hub, that is your indicator that you need to change something about your process and keep going until you get something that works for you. And you will. All right, folks, that's all I got for today's video, and it only took me 2 shirts to do it. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to join the Broken Clocks Club Discord server, where me and other like-minded ADHDers chat about stuff, and there's also some cool opportunities to get involved with challenges, make some money, do all kinds of fun stuff.
Hope you liked this video. If you did, please blah 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 blah.
See you next time. I love you.